Yep. So with that, I will kickstart what I wanted to share with you guys. I think all of you are coming into here to hear about what is happening in Hong Kong, handling our own very much COVID that is happening. So I'll introduce myself very quickly first. So if you don't know me, it's fine. Then I'll introduce myself. My name is Serafina. I usually go by Sarah, which is the first 4 words. And my position in AIESEC is I'm the regional manager of B2B and also income exchanges. So I look over IGV, IGT, BD, and like for Laxita, next year I'll be looking with you like on BD on that part. So I work for AIESEC in Asia Pacific currently, and I was born and also raised in AIESEC Hong Kong the whole of my life for the past 22 years as well. So that is who I am, and I'm very happy and very honored to be here with you to share a bit about Hong Kong, my home city. So with that, like I will just have a very quick question for everybody. Like, what's your first impression when you think about Hong Kong and how we have been handling COVID? Anything that you know. You can even write that I don't know, it's fine as well. Write me something in the chat box. Very systematic. Anything more? What do you think about Hong Kong? Dealing with COVID that comes to your mind? An impression? Very good culture. That's also very positive. Handled well. Depending, later on I'll explain it to you. All of it, okay, I will move on with that. But before that, there was something that I wanted to show you. Like, these are also very good impressions. I feel very happy that you guys think very highly of my own city as well. But then, to be honest, we are really a city that only has just learned our own lesson. And that is something that we learned very painfully. And I would love to share with you what is happening to SARS. So what is SARS? SARS is something that happened to Hong Kong in 2003. And in 2003, we have an epidemic, like not as big as a pandemic. It only happened in Hong Kong. Something similar to COVID, but a bit more serious. Also respiratory disease. It was spread from human to human, and it all started with a wildlife market that happens in China as well. And I'll show you a very quick video about it that I have prepared for all of you as well. So let me know if you can hear the screen and everything.
It started like a regular cold for Mr. Lee in the spring of 2003, but soon he was experiencing severe pain.
聽到有一種病毒入侵，但係我住院嘅期間咧係威爾斯感染嗰班見習醫生係混埋一齊嘅。
He spent 2 months in that coma, and with an influx of patients experiencing similar symptoms, scientists at Hong Kong's universities worked round the clock to identify what was causing it and how to treat it.
The difficulty is you don't know what you are treating at that time. All right, the patient having fever and the pneumonia, and we haven't found anything at that time. So everybody is very anxious, trying to find what is going on wrong with the patients.
The disease was eventually called SARS, Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome, a virus that first spread in densely populated animal markets in southern China. In the spring of 2003, it was brought to Hong Kong by a visiting doctor, and within weeks, it spread throughout the city.
當時嚟講咧，即係淘大花園根本係一個死城一樣嘅，冇晒人嘅，根本上嚟講，完全鋪頭都唔開嘅。咁所以咧就好多人都唔敢嚟呢度嘅。
The Amoy Gardens private housing estate in Kowloon was one of the black spots for disease transmission.
成個期間咧，我哋有差唔多300幾人咧係受到感染啦。咁當時呢度嘅氣氛就好差啦，因為點解咧？政府冇話俾我聽，就嗰個來源係點樣啊？同埋嗰啲人咧入咗醫院之後咧，佢哋就嗰個情況咧就好差，即係變得好壞。咁啊好多人咧都發高燒，同埋咧就入咗呢個ICU。
In total, over 1,700 people in Hong Kong were infected, and nearly 300 people died. Many of the survivors still suffer from SARS long-term effects. Mr. Lee hasn't been able to work since he got ill.
後來出咗個幾月之後咧，一路走去鍛鍊，去學行路。
Yes, I will leave it in here for this video for you to just having a very quick understanding of what happened in Hong Kong. What is it meaning of SARS that happened in Hong Kong? So what happens was that like back in 2003, we experienced another virus that is very strong that killed a lot of people in Hong Kong within a very short amount of time. And we learned a very painful lessons. And for that, I will actually let you know is that like we learned a lot of things for Hong Kong back in 2003 after experiencing that is public vigilance on hygiene was something that has to be taken very seriously after so many people died, and it was just transmitted by air, by people's like if you are talking to other like your mouth, like all the air that comes out of it, it also transmits all of it. And we started to pay a lot of attention to hygiene with masks, with hand washing, with monitoring body temperature, and being having the common sense to stay away from public. Because before then, Hong Kong was like everyone, to be honest. We never really cared about hygiene that particularly well. You will see street food happening and after it. But when you understand that how deadly actually a virus is, and it's not about whether are you old or whether are you sick, it affects everyone. And even if it doesn't affect you, it doesn't mean that your actions doesn't affect the other people around you in your community. And it was a very painful lesson that I would actually bring to you when you oh, okay. If you want to switch room, it's totally fine. But yeah, I'm sorry. Like maybe I'm overrunning a little bit in here. For hygiene part and then the public healthcare system as well. We never have had anything like an infectious disease unit. We have overcrowding hospitals, and we never had proper flu shots and all of them. But all of these, they are things that we learn, and it sounds very much like COVID because it is something similar to COVID, something also respiratory, but it has even more severe effect than COVID. And that was a very painful lesson that Hong Kong learned. And when you see, this is the COVID statistics that you are seeing in Hong Kong. So what it means is that like, actually for us, is it very systematic, or is it even means that it's done well? Up until today we only have 3 cases. For the last 7 days, on average, we have 2 cases per day. It looks very systematic. But behind all of these graphs, there is something that is happening is that like, although we might learn our lessons, but there are some things that the history will still repeat itself, that when we see there are spikes, what are things that as public we should be able to do? That I will let you know in here is that COVID measures taken in Hong Kong right after the first spike, because we all know that Hong Kong economic pillars that we dependent a lot on tourism industries, and our borders has always needed to be open. So one of the things that came into mind was that like we could not stop all the borders actually closing for nobody to come into Hong Kong, because economy would take a very huge stroll around it. So what we did a lot was quarantine measures, case tracking measures. So what we do is that like every single time we go to a restaurant or we go to a gym or anywhere that you go, you need to have an app that would actually lock in your personal information, basically your phone number, your name, and where you have been, how long you have stayed in that particular place. And if in the next 30 days, any person who has been in close contact with an infected COVID patient, you get notified to control it better and better. And with that, I only wanted to bring out one message, is that every single city, you learn your lessons from very harsh lessons of the past. Maybe it's because some people have died before, so that's why the community has to learn its lessons. But maybe if you're hearing this, I understand in Sri Lanka's case, it's getting worsening with the COVID cases, and you may be wondering, then what am I here to know about how Hong Kong has handled it? Of course, I know that maybe you guys have had SARS before, maybe you guys have learned your lessons before, but how can I actually help with Sri Lanka? And that is also something that when I was preparing this is, what can youth in Sri Lanka especially do about this? And how can you actually help? So one thing that when I was thinking about this, I reflected upon when I was experiencing, because I experienced both SARS and COVID. When I was in COVID, when I was thinking, what can young people do? These are the questions that came into my mind, because young people, we can always do something about it. No matter our community learned the lesson, or it still needs time to learn its lesson. The first thing, what can you offer to the society right now? And it also brings to a previous question, is what is really happening in your community. Not talking about how much COVID cases you are happening, but under every single COVID cases, such as the videos that is showing you just now, you see that people are suffering from it. Communities are dead. You will see that dead not as in like literal dead as in like people are like quarantining them and then they don't feel connected to anybody, or that these people, when they come out to society again after they're healed, they are not being accepted to society because they previously have had illnesses that might require them for long-term medical care. These are the things that is happening in society that you should be able to know, or you need some digging around to know what is happening in society, and then further push into what can you offer. And the third thing, most importantly, is what advantage do you have as a young people for here that you can actually think about what can youth do. So some examples from Hong Kong that if I could share with you is that when COVID actually hit and when we all learned the lesson, one thing that everybody came into is the first one on the left-hand side. Our businesses in Hong Kong actually step in because masks, the ones that you wear every single day, was actually in a very big shortage. So some people could buy masks, some people sell masks in a very huge price that nobody could afford them. Some business came in and then they designed masks, and it started to have this whole production line of masks that was not in their daily business. And they are starting to give out affordable masks to the people who cannot afford it and the prices that were around there. These are the things that when you think about what are the things that you have and how can you help in a community, you can come up with such a solutions. And the second thing is that in Hong Kong, especially with e-learning and schools, everything is closed. One thing is that poor people, especially people under the poverty line, they will have a huge trouble with how do they catch up with schoolworks. Maybe like people with the better conditions, they can hire private tutors, but what about the younger people that cannot do that? So some young people, they decided to offer tutoring, and also some of the used electronics such as iPad, laptops, old laptops that they have, desktops, so that even poor children, they could have a device for them to be able to catch up on the e-learning, and they're not left behind from there. And the last part, also very important, is that how can you, like, apart from these things, what can you still do is when all the quarantines happen and everybody is locked down at home, one thing that emerges in the society is that people are not moving at home. They might be suffering from mental depressions because they're stuck at home and they never see really people, or they're not turning very healthy because they keep eating at home. There isn't a lot of exercise because they never get out of the house. Keeping everybody healthy around this stage is also something very crucial, no matter if they get COVID or they don't get COVID, because very simple logic, the healthier you get, the less likely you get COVID itself as well. So for that, I wanted to end with some messages when I want to share what is happening in Hong Kong is that every single society will learn to adapt to COVID. And adapting to COVID isn't something that is very horrible. See that as an opportunity, such as how to learn to shine online. Maybe for you, you will see very easily to see, okay, with COVID, I don't have my job opportunities. I cannot find internships. But how do you shine online to manage your online brand in your LinkedIn? How do you talk in more platforms so that people getting to know you even online? You don't necessarily need to be in a place physically in order for you to shine. Adapt to with technology that you can use. Maybe some people, it's because of COVID, that's why the delivery services actually got improved. And maybe some young people come up with better platforms that could actually offer delivery services such as helping you take medicines, services that could be helping you give another very important document to the other part of the city without you actually traveling around. And even MOOC such as Coursera, edX, a lot of these platforms thrive because of COVID, and including Zoom that we're using right now. And this, the third thing is, how do you assist people that needs help? Let's say unemployed people for job opportunities. How do you create more opportunities for yourself and also for the people around it? And I hope with that, you can get the message out from here is learn to adapt to COVID, and every single city will learn its own lesson. But most importantly, focus on what you can do as a young people, and I believe that will bring all the changes that we need to see within even in Sri Lanka as well. So yeah, again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask anything that you wanted to understand about Hong Kong's handling COVID, or questions that you have about what young people and their role that they can play in COVID as well. Any questions you guys have? Okay, I see one. Does Hong Kong use Sinopharm only or any other vaccines? Okay, so currently we have two vaccines. One is BioNTech, the other is Sinovac. And fun fact, I actually just got my second dose of vaccine today. So my arm is actually pretty numb at this point. So when our government vetted for like the vaccines available, we chose these two vaccines in Hong Kong. And there is a lot available around. And if you want to know more about vaccine, I say like, what do you think about Sinovac or BioNTech? Let me know. Yeah.
Hello, Serafina.
Yes.
Okay,
Hello.
for you personally, how has the COVID situation affected your professional work?
Okay. How has it affected my professional work? So when COVID hit, I was a senior student in university, so everything turned online. Of course, a lot of interactions stopped. But to be honest, because we have built some like bondings with the students and everything, it was pretty much fine. The most difficult part is how do you adapt to all the networking events? How do you extend your professional network online? Because at first it was a bit difficult. Nobody actually know how to really do that. And the second part is how do you get a better job? In terms of COVID, how do you make sure that yourself is still shining, that you're still gaining values for the amount of things that you're doing? And suddenly you figure out is that everybody start taking online courses on Coursera. Maybe they get certified by Google, certified by Salesforce, that they have a lot of new skill sets that they have earned during the lockdown period and all of them. And that I would also say like it's partly affected as in the whole environment changed, because before it's just about your university, you get an internship, you get a graduate job. But afterwards, you start to figure out there's a lot of opportunities around online, learning skills, or even like expanding yourself, networking and all of those. That changed it a lot. And to later part is that people are starting to figure out online careers is something that is very interesting as well. Like online careers such as brand building or even like video uploading, content creations. Those are things that has been around even before COVID. But with COVID, they have been thriving. Like if you look at even I'll give an example of TikTok, like how much people became like professional TikTok people as their main career. Like that could be a career to me, like something like that. Like it became a main trend around as well. So you see a lot of people taking a digital career for that too. Any more questions or worries that you guys have?
Hello.
It's also fine. Yeah, sure.
Hi. So this is not exactly the situation, but Hong Kong did face China's law, right? Last year. No, yes. So how is the country adapting to that?
Hong Kong, again, your question is Hong Kong what?
Yes, Hong Kong, the national security law of China. How is the country adapting to that? It was pretty difficult from the social media parts of it. So I just want to know how the current situation is.
Okay. So you're talking about Hong Kong relationship with mainland. Because actually you're referring to the social movement that we have right before COVID, right?
Exactly, yes.
Okay. That's a huge topic that you're asking, but I'm very glad that you asked. Actually, there is a few things that you can see. When I was talking about SARS back in 2003, it started off in a wildlife market in mainland China. And 16 years later in 2019, it also happened in a wildlife market in Wuhan, China. Of course, is it mainly the first strand that you can see, but it was definitely the first strand that it was identified. History repeated itself, and there was a lot of sentiments, I would use this word, sentiments happening in the society, how they feel about our own motherland in that sense. In any ways, like Hong Kong is still part of like China, if you know the full name of Hong Kong for that. But the sentiments is definitely there, how we have been, like how local citizens have been feeling about like mainlanders visiting a lot in Hong Kong, because that was actually also one of the main economic pillars that Hong Kong relied on. But at the same time, it was also bringing in the disease as well. Plus, there was a lot of, including the social movements and all of them, the sentiment was very negative. And with that, it brings out a lot of conflict between mainlanders in like mainland of China and also people from Hong Kong. Like they wouldn't communicate, a lot of them. And I would still say up to today with COVID and all of them, it's a lot of finger pointing, but there hasn't been any constructive output that has been given out to how both of us is going to further, like, let's say, like further the relationship in the future or something like that. It's just a very tense situation that people tend to avoid as much as they could, or that even if they are facing each other, it's very two-sided and very extreme in that sense. So yeah, that's what's happening in Hong Kong in that sense.
Thank you for answering, and I hope everything goes well for you.
It's okay. Thank you for that as well. Okay, any more questions? Like, you told me to slow down. By the way, if you're like new to here and you never heard anything like from like that I have presented, then you can also let me know. Then I think I need to go a second time, but I don't know, like, did you guys hear once already? Thank you. Thank you for also being here. Okay. I think then maybe you guys could change the breakout rooms if you have already heard my stories already. And then, yeah. And then thank you so much for coming here and also hearing about what is happening in Hong Kong as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. For Kalani, you're my OC in here, right?
Yeah, hi.
Okay. Yeah, I just wondering, like, do I need to run another round? Like, I still have one more sharing, or like,
yeah,
what's
like,
the time?
You have to run another time, but I'm not sure whether we have time for that. Maybe like we can start again, but I'm not sure. But Colombia one also started the second session right now, so maybe we can also go another round. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so I just now I see a few of you guys like joined in here. Like, if you are new in here, like, you can turn on your camera, let me know that you're new in here, and I will very quickly go like what is happening in Hong Kong. But yeah, after you turn on your camera. If not, then I can like Kalani, like, how much time do I have left for this round? And you're muted.
We were planning to finish it by 7:40, but I think the MC has decided to give more time for this because this is very important, I guess.
Okay. Okay, then I'll just go run one more round again. So if people are coming in, coming out, then it's also fine. Okay, so hello everybody. I see some of you guys just joined. So welcome to the Hong Kong room. And Kalani, if you could send a message to everyone like Hong Kong one is starting so that people could join, then that would be amazing. Thank you so much. So yeah, if you're here, then remember to turn on your camera so that I can also see your faces. Then it would be super nice. And let me know if you have any single time, if you have any questions that you want to ask about Hong Kong or anything, just reach out to the chat box, type it in there. I answer all of your questions. So before we start, I will just introduce myself very quickly. My name is Serafina. I am the current regional manager for B2B and also income exchanges for AIESEC and Asia Pacific. Just call me Sarah by the first 4 words of my name. That is also fine. And I was basically born and raised in Hong Kong, and that's why I'm bringing you here. Like, what do you think about Hong Kong and all of that? So I will start with a very quick question. Is basically when it comes to like Hong Kong and how it has been handling COVID, what comes to your mind as in like your impression of like how Hong Kong has been handling COVID itself? Hello, Anaji and Anjali. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. Any impressions that you have about how Hong Kong is handling COVID? Just type anything that came to your mind in the chat box, then it's also fine. Anything? Okay, anyways, yeah, go on. Are you going to, okay. You can either type in the chat box or you could share directly, turn on your mic share, it's also fine. Disneyland, okay. Okay, impression of Hong Kong and Disneyland, that's also accurate. We do have a very nice Disney. Just looked at the COVID chart. Yeah. I have many friends in CHK. Oh, wow, you know Hong Kong very well. It seems great for all of them. So, yeah, that's also, it has declined. Yes, definitely. Currently, later on, I will also show you what is happening in Hong Kong. Is that, let's say, just for today, we only have 3 new cases, and average for this week, 2 cases per day, something like that, 2 new cases per day. But I'm here to introduce to you like, about my city, is that we're not a city that is perfect. To be honest, we are just a city who has learned its lessons very harshly for a reason. And I wanted to, is Jackie Chan from Hong Kong? Yes, he's from Hong Kong. He is more popular outside of Hong Kong than being in Hong Kong. And that is a fun fact about Jackie Chan, if you want to know about it. So what is the things about like how Hong Kong has learned its hard lessons is that I will show this video about lasting effect of SARS in Hong Kong. So what is SARS? SARS is something, a more serious version of COVID. You can think of it in that way. That happened to Hong Kong in 2003. So we actually went through another epidemic 16 years ago, something like that. And I'll show you a very quick video about it.
It started like a regular cold for Mr. Lee in the spring of 2003, but soon he was experiencing severe pain.
聽到有一種病毒入侵，但係我住院嘅期間咧係威爾斯感染嗰班見習醫生係混埋一齊嘅。
He spent 2 months in that coma. And with an influx of patients experiencing similar symptoms, scientists at Hong Kong's universities worked round the clock to identify what was causing it and how to treat it.
The difficulty is you don't know what you are treating at that time. All right? The patient having fever and the pneumonia, and we haven't found anything at that time. So everybody is very anxious, trying to find what is going on wrong with the patients.
The disease was eventually called SARS, Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome, a virus that first spread in densely populated animal markets in southern China. In the spring of 2003, It was brought to Hong Kong by a visiting doctor, and within weeks, it spread throughout the city.
當時嚟講咧，即係淘大花園根本係一個死城一樣嘅，冇晒人嘅，根本上嚟講，完全鋪頭都唔開嘅。咁所以咧就好多人都唔敢嚟呢度嘅。
The Amoy Gardens private housing estate in Kowloon was one of the black spots for disease transmission.
成個期間咧，我哋有差唔多300幾人咧係受到感染啦。咁當時呢度嘅氣氛就好差啦，因為點解咧？政府冇話俾我聽，就嗰個來源係點樣啊？同埋嗰啲人咧入咗醫院之後咧，佢哋就嗰個情況咧就好差，即係變得好壞。咁啊好多人咧都發高燒，同埋咧就入咗呢個ICU。
In total, over 1,700 people in Hong Kong were infected, and nearly 300 people died. Many of the survivors still suffer from SARS long-term effects. Mr.
Yes, okay. So this is like a very quick introduction of what is SARS that happened to Hong Kong. And so as I was just saying, it was basically a more serious version of COVID. And the way how Hong Kong actually learned about it is how comparing what the context is just because we had another epidemic a few 10-something years ago, and it taught us a lot of lessons. The first thing is about vigilance in public vigilance for hygiene. Before, Hong Kong doesn't really it wasn't the first priority, I would say so, for hygiene. You would see street food, you would see things like, okay, hand washing wasn't that important, people still do it, but they don't regard that as very important. And nobody wear a lot of masks unless they, even if they're sick, they don't really wear a mask. Up until SARS, when they figured out is that actually it's not about whether you're going to die or not. It's about if you're not taking preventive measures good enough, the people around you is going to get affected, especially the old and the weaker ones. And it brought in a lot of vigilance. I will just give you a very simple example. From that year onwards, all our school curriculums, including one thing, how to wash your hands for more than 1 minute and how to clearly scrub your hands clean. Those are very simple things that you can do that actually taught us a lot more into how to handle public hygiene, public healthcare system for that as well. So we learned our lessons, and including it actually brought us up 2003, we have a better public healthcare systems. We have had regular flu shots and all of them, and also have a stricter borders to all the healthcares in there. And with that, I would say it should have prepared Hong Kong for when COVID hits, after 10-something years later on. History will always repeat itself, but when it repeats itself, did it actually made it better for Hong Kong or made it worse for Hong Kong? As you can see, this is the COVID statistics of Hong Kong. We have had somewhere around 3 to 4 waves. Did we learn all the lessons? I won't say so. But did we improve better than never experiencing SARS? Then we definitely improved from there. And because of that, I would want to tell you something is if you wanted to know what are the COVID measures taken in Hong Kong, of course, we have quarantines, we have a lot of restrictions to how people with this. But the most importantly is when history repeats itself, as public, how do we react to it? How do we act even more vigilant? It's not about what the government imposes on you that restricts you, because there will always be people who go out of the restrictions, who wants to break rules. But breaking rules is not just for a convenience, but we need to understand as a public is that how do you also contribute to the public area and to everybody in the community, in the society about the things that you do. So with that, I would say the quarantine measures was actually done pretty nicely in a way is that everybody respected them. And the next thing that we did for this time was that we have this app that is called Leave Home Safe. So basically, whenever we go somewhere to a gym, to a restaurant, we always log in to where we have been there so that it's easier to track 10-something years later experiencing another this time pandemic. The easier things that we could do with technology is make sure that how do we contain the virus with better technology? How do we inform the people that they need to get mandatory tests as soon as possible? And how do we aid all of them? But yes, like talking about the next thing about other than that is that like maybe I don't know where you're from. I think some of you are coming from Japan, some of you are coming from Sri Lanka, and you might have a question is, what can young people do in here? What can youth do? What am I supposed to hear and get out of this? And with that, I wanted to bring you to some questions to actually think about is, how much do you actually know about what is happening in your society? I'm not talking about COVID cases or like how many infected is around, or that how much you have stayed home or quarantined yourself. Those are things that I hope you have already done as a personal responsibility. But in AIESEC, we always talk about being a young leader and how to be better young leader. Then it talks about what can you offer to the society right now after you understand what is happening in there. And the last part is what advantage do you have as a young people that could actually help so much in there? And I'll give you a few examples in what happened in Hong Kong that I do think is a very good case practice, is when COVID actually hit, like what happened was that masks were so expensive that normal people couldn't really afford for it in a lot of ways. And the way how business works in a free market is that like, if there is demand, the prices is always going to go high. But it doesn't necessarily mean that in a situation of a pandemic, all the business has to go through with the free market principles. At least for some business in Hong Kong, they stepped in and they started to like their original like line of production was never in mass, and they started to make a production line in mass, and they start to sell masks in a very cheap prices and in a very affordable way, so that everybody can get masks for themselves and also keep themselves safe. And those masks are in high quality as well. Those are things that when business think about, they have a very important role that they can do. And then the next thing about young people, let's say that with COVID, we are all staying home. For us, we might be lucky that we have a laptop that we can still continue with our lectures, we can continue with our tutoring, a different part of it. But if you think about like poverty, people who are living under the poverty line, like especially the children's, when they stayed home, do they have the same kind of resources as other kids in school that they can continue their learning and all of them for that? And I would just have to like round this up very quickly. And for the last part is, how do you make sure that everybody like staying healthy within the amount of time that they are staying at home as well? Because the healthier you get, the less likely you're going to catch COVID as well. And with that, I wanted to bring you into something is that like, never think adapting to COVID isn't something that is horrible that is happening to you. Think of it as an opportunity as a young people for yourself, and also the things that you can do for your society. Like, don't see it in a way as that you're taken away from opportunities. Learn to see how you can shine with it online, adapt to with technologies or the things that you know, how to be better at it, and also assist the people who is in need of your help and figure out a way to how to help them. Especially, we are also a generation or like young people doesn't really get COVID. But with that, I need to close here. So thank you very much, people, for joining in here.